Welcome to the Grazing Grass Podcast, episode 116.
Keep a very open mind about what's possible and not get caught in the stigma of owning any certain type of cow.
You're listening to the Grazing Grass Podcast, sharing information and stories of grass-based livestock production utilizing regenerative practices. I'm your host, Cal Hardage. You're growing more than grass. You're growing a healthier ecosystem to help your cattle thrive in their environment. You're growing your livelihood by increasing your carrying capacity and reducing your operating costs. You're growing stronger communities and a legacy to last generations. The grazing management decisions you make today impact everything from the soil beneath your feet to the community all around you. That's why the Noble Research Institute created their Essentials of Regenerative Grazing course to teach ranchers like you easy to follow techniques to quickly assess your forage production and infrastructure capacity in order to begin grazing more efficiently. Together, they can help you grow not only a healthier operation, but a legacy that lasts. Learn more on their website at noble.org/grazing. It's noble.org/grazing. On today's show, we have August Horstmann of Horstmann Cattle Company. He was on the podcast way back on episode 15, almost 3.5 years ago. We caught back up with August and shared what's happened since then and what he's doing now. It's a great episode. Find out how his cattle program's going and what else he's doing on his farm. Before we talk to August, 10 seconds about my farm. Later in the episode, we talk about a little bit of a drought. We were getting a little bit dry here, but the rains have came, and we are so very happy for that. However, I would like for the tornadoes to stay away. 10 seconds about the podcast. We have some wonderful episodes coming up in the coming weeks. You don't want to miss them. But enough of all that. Let's talk to August. August, we want to welcome you back to Grazing Grass Podcast. We're excited you're here today.
Thanks for having me back. It's been a minute. How's it been?
It's been good. Lots have happened. I figured lots have happened in your world, so it's about time to catch back up and find out what's going on there. So in early 21, January 21, and for listeners who hadn't heard your episode, you were on episode 15 of the Grazing Grass Podcast. So first off, I have to say thank you for coming on to a no-name podcast and sharing about your story. I'm still a no-name podcast, but I have a few more listeners now.
That's good. I don't have much of a name either, so we're in it together.
There we are. When you were on before, you had gone cold turkey for regenerative ag. You had stopped what you were doing with your Angus and Angus cross and started in the South Pole journey. And at the time, you were getting ready to calve out some of your first 50% South Pole cows. And then you also had your pork going on, and you had broilers and layers.
Okay. Yeah, so that was right before all of it, death by diversity set in, it's what it sounds like. That was, we were ramping up production and diversify.
So let's just talk a little bit about your cattle just to get started. You were about to calve out some of those 50% South Poles and have some 75% South Poles on the ground. How did that go? Are you still a fan of South Poles?
Yeah, so I can't remember back then, was that, are you 50% Coriani or just 50% beef cow? I can't even remember. I would say it was
they were
just
50%, I think, out of your black cows.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we've been building on that. Got all South Pole bulls now, and we've been building on that. Still don't mess with papers, really. That's more of a headache just on my end, I believe. And yeah, so we got those cows now. They're calving still on the place. Majority of them are. We've called really hard. We went through a D3 drought. It was shaping up this past year. And going into that, it was cattle prices were coming up. And I made the management decision of we're going to have to cull something. I turned 3 bulls out for 45 days. So I cut my breeding season by 60. I think I cut my breeding season by 15 days. So I went from a 60 to a 45-day breeding season.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of those cows that I have started with, most of those bred in that season, but really trying to push them a lot harder. I actually got them listed for sale now with the way cattle prices are, and we seem to be still trending pretty dry. So I do believe I would move those cows if they would go the right place.
We're pretty dry here in northeast Oklahoma. We were wet for a while and it was looking pretty good, but spring has turned off dry and it's got me a little concerned. I think we're a D1 right now, but the county over is a D2, and we live right in the corner of 3 counties. I've got land in 2 of the counties bordered up against each other, so I've got some land in a D2 right now and some land in a D1 drought, which just getting started. We did get rain last night. I don't know if you're getting some rain up your way, but just on that conversation, where are you located?
So I'm in Owensville, Missouri, 60 miles southwest of St. Louis off 44. I'm about 20 miles north of 44 at the Cuba exit. Yeah, it's the dryness is when it rains here, we're just getting these wicked storms that just dump tons of rain in a short period of time. We had a couple nice spring rains, but for majority, they've just been wicked, and we've been getting a lot of wind, kind of trending over the past couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like we're getting a lot more wind. The wind it just really doesn't seem to stop.
It always seems like we get a fair amount of wind here, but yeah, it seems like we're getting, I would say the wind intensity pressure has increased. I don't know, but just anecdotally as I think about it, it seems that way.
Yeah.
And I've got a few cows for sale myself, just because I'm going to have to destock some if we don't get some rain in here. And talking to my dad on his place, we're going to sell some sheep to try and decrease some pressure, what the rains do. And this week we're supposed to get some, so hopefully it'll be much better.
Yeah.
You mentioned on your cattle earlier, you said Corrientes, or were they black cows? Are you running some Corrientes now?
Yeah, so I think 21, I started just dabbling in the Corrientes. I guess that would have been that fall I got my first little set and just started experimenting with them. And I actually grew that up some and had, I think, 60 or so full Corrientes, and then I had some half-blood South Pole Corrientes and things like that. And this fall, we were really dry. Didn't get hardly any fall rains. Hay was expensive, hard to come by. And I just started selling the stuff people wanted. No one wants a slick black cow because everybody has that idea. Like when in the world that I'm in, my little small circle, a lot of it is the red cattle. I see a lot of people buying papered, hairy South Poles over a slick-hided black cow that's got South Pole in. They'll pay more for one that's got hair,
right?
But for that piece of paper that goes with her. And but so back to the Corrientes. So it was something like I could get out of Corrientes, and I knew roughly how to get back into them. And that was the easiest thing to get out of it and get back in my mind. So we sold all the Corrientes cows this fall. One guy came and got all the cows. And funny thing is, every cow that calved on my place to my bulls in the spring of 23. So that means they went through a breeding season, basically a full year with me. I was 100% on breed up on that group of Coriani cows in a D3 drought 45-day breeding season. Basically, but I had taken the time, I trained them to polywire, I lined them out, got them grazing, come when I'd call, everything like that. And I enjoyed that part. I enjoy training cattle to polywire and moving them and stuff. I've got Border Collies that I train too. That gives those dogs a lot of time. When I bring those new cattle in for a couple weeks, it's like right now, we just got back into Coriani's about, it was like the Tuesday before Easter. So it's been a month now. And we bought a potload of 80 heifers out of Texas. And most of them never seen hot wire, etc. I would say all of them hadn't seen hot wire, but and we just started grazing them. But so we're gonna go back and I'm gonna line out this set, and then hopefully whatever breeds will be bred on my papered South Pool bulls, and I'm gonna plan on moving them this fall.
On those heifers and getting them in, how'd you break them to polywire?
We bring them in, and basically I'm more of a turn out and put back. The less time I can keep the cattle pinned up.
Yeah.
When you bring a lot of cattle in like that, it seems the quicker you can get them out on grass, the healthier they'll stay. So we brought them in, we put them in a trap for a couple days that had some grass, and we unrolled some hay. That allowed us to let them calm down from being on the truck. We gave them new ear tags, stuff like that. We did go ahead and worm these because they were pretty rough shape. For the first few days, I really was wondering about them, but as they're grazed, we're getting them. They seem to be coming around. But and then we just turn out into like high tensile paddocks, bigger paddocks, and we'll start pushing those around into bigger paddocks with dogs. And once we have that high tensile down where the shock, then we'll start putting polywire out and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Did you have any jumpers?
No, we got a lot that like want to go under. If a fence is high and we're running on one strand, or if you got some of our, we have some gates that start at 33, but then diagonal up to a 44-inch wire, hot wire, whatever. We'll see some go under. A creek crossing that, where we didn't put any drop downs in it. They're smart. They'll go right on. They'll go underneath stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And then we just open gates, but that gives my dogs a chance to go out, grab them, bring them to a gate. And so they're learning multiple things there.
Oh yeah.
And so like training dogs, training cattle all at the same time. And it just that part of it seems to work. It's the part that I really like. I like handling cattle and I like working dogs. So it's like my favorite things to do.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I dealing with much smaller numbers, but I got a few Corriente heifers in, and they wanted to go under, but I had one that was hopping over everything. Of course, I had a little bit of an issue with my Energizer right then. I got that resolved, and now I got it hot enough that she doesn't even get close enough to hop. But she was causing me some fits for a few days.
Yep. That I've had just one. I mean, most of my cows, like if they were pushed, they would go over. A lot of our fences at 33 inches, right? Our top wire is 33. If they would be pushed, I mean, they're going to jump. But I'd say majority of everybody's cows would too.
Yeah, if you're providing enough pressure on them and causing and no way to escape, they're going to get out of that situation.
So, it's just all about getting those cows' minds, around that fence, and then they're good.
Now, you talked a little bit about using your Border Collies, and you love doing that. Do you raise some Border Collies and train them for sale, or do you just have your own that you use?
I've done a couple, so I've sold a couple started dogs, and then I have my main dog. She's 7 now. I've raised 2 litters of puppies out of her, and I've got a son from her first litter and her daughter from her last litter. I think she's too old to breed. I actually just spoke for another dog that I get. I'm not sure when this episode will come out, but I think it's going to be around the 1st of May. I'll be picking up another. This will be my first papered dog. I am going to go papered on my Border Collies, just because I think coming up down the road selling puppies, it'll be easier to do that. I didn't have a problem selling out of my last litter. My main dog, in the male we bred her to, he was down from southwest Missouri, and it was a pretty sought after deal. I mean, we sold all the puppies basically before the litter was born. So.
Oh, yeah. I kick around the idea of getting a Border Collie.
Yeah.
From time to time, I get pretty weak-kneed, and I start looking, and I think about it. And then I'm like, that's a lot of work I'm committing to, because they need a lot of attention. And then I've got to train it, and I haven't trained a dog. So, I've actually got some books on it, because I've thought far enough ahead that I need to read on this to know how to do it. But at the same time, I have not taken that step. And when I talk to someone who's got Border Collies, I'm always like, oh, I need to go get one. I take a step back and I'm like, will that cause too much stress to my animals? Do you find any downsides to working your dogs?
No, I personally don't. The weird thing is, on what I've noticed, a dog with a good down and that's not running around, not barking, I take my dogs with me everywhere. They'll sit on the 4-wheeler. Cattle will walk up and sniff on them. They might get their nose snipped at, but I found that if I can actually settle cattle into a paddock better with dogs, if I move with a dog versus a bunch of other people on 4-wheelers chasing them or something like that, I can just move those cattle and handle them so much calmer, it seems. And I don't know if it's just because I spend a lot of time out with my cows, but I mean, I have found just sending a dog down poly wire and bringing a cow back through a gate versus me driving down with a 4-wheeler and chasing her back in. It just seems like I get along with, I'll strip graze cattle and my dogs will be right there. And there's a difference with working. And there's a difference when we go to work versus if we're just going to go roll up poly wire and strip graze. Those dogs go right with me.
Oh, yeah. Very good. When you trained your dogs, is there, and I'm completely talking about something I know nothing about. Like I said, I bought a couple of books, but I haven't read very much in them. Is there a certain philosophy you use on training them? Or how do you go through that process of training your dogs?
I don't know if I'm the best one to be talking to about that. My 7-year-old dog was my first dog. And luckily she was probably one of the toughest Border Collies out there because I started her on pairs at 8 months old. Like I did everything wrong with her.
Oh, yeah.
But she gets me out of a lot of jams, and she's my go-to dog. We gathered some bulls yesterday and moved them to a new paddock, and we had a new bull in there. And he wanted to stand off and fight and kind of show who's boss. And she goes in there real calm, and she'll just stand there, and she'll just one time bite him on the nose, but she doesn't continue to chase, right? It's a bite. He backs off and goes with the other bulls. And I didn't teach her that, right? I don't I put some command with it, like a walk up or a stand, but most of the time I really don't have to see anything. If she's watching one and I can overlook her on like we'll use yesterday, the main bulls, they wanted to break to the other side and she was focused on this one. She hit him and then I hit the dog with a right command and center to turn those bulls that had tried to walk past her. So like I kind of oversee, but she knows where all my gates are and she knows if I start calling the cows in one deal and then with new cattle, when I mix these 80 head of Coriani cows with my beef cows and you got all these cows and they're stirred up a little bit and the new cattle are trying to figure out the pecking order and stuff and you're trying to move them. The dog and I start calling, but the dog needs help. She knows where we're going and how it needs to be done and can hold those. So I didn't teach her any of that. Back to your question, I follow Randall Walker with Seta stock dogs. I watch his videos. I've been to one of his. He's got really tough dogs and he's like a no nonsense type guy. And I follow his deal. His brute dog is the reason that I actually went with Border Collies. And I was fortunate enough to buy a grandson out of brute that he actually got killed, but I have a great grandson out of the brute dog. And then I'm picking up a puppy that goes back to his litters to this deal. But so I follow a lot of his stuff with sanctioning and how you start them.
Oh, yeah. Very good. So what I'm hearing a lot is you stay out of the way and let the dog's instincts take over and you're just there providing some insight.
Yeah, I try to. I mean, they know what to do or like a good one. But I mean, it took a lot. It's not all roses. I mean, we've had some issues before, but I would say majority of the time, I couldn't do what I do out a dog. I guess I could. It'd take a lot more time.
Right. And that's something we're all short on this time. The hair sheep are like that for me. I went out other morning and I have 2 flocks right now. I have the flock that accidentally lambed and I have the flock that's getting ready to lamb. And I keep them separated so I know who's lambed and stuff. And I go out other morning and I had them across a fence from each other, but they got together. And that's my fault. I shouldn't have had them across the fence to tempt them. But I did. And so other morning I got to sort sheep again. So that's one of those. They created a lot more work for me that morning. Wasn't a dog, but those hair sheep do that for me.
Yeah.
When we jump back I was listening to your episode earlier, just to refresh my memory. And you were talking about pastured pork at the time. And you were using pork to get into some forest areas to work towards silvopasture.
Yep.
How has that process going? Are you still doing it? How is it?
It worked. It worked really well. So created that silvopasture template with the pigs. I did have to go through cut some trees. And then we had to go through with equipment and pile those trees that we cut, burned them. And then I followed up with bale grazing with cattle. And and I never seeded it or anything. And now it's right out my window here. And I've got grazing. I can utilize it for grazing. Hogs are really neat. We're in the process of looking for somebody to hire. We're at the point where we need another person to come on. And I personally don't want to do pigs, but with the right person coming on, I would be interested in expanding 1 or 2 other enterprises, either goats, sheep, pork, broilers, or layers, or a combination of them for the right person. But shortly after, I guess in 2021, we wrapped up all the broilers, layers, pork, and basically we got death by diversity June of 2022, I became full-time on the farm. So this year, June, I'll be celebrating my second year full-time for myself. But
Oh, yes.
we strictly are cattle right now. I have a couple layers that I mess around with, and I traded some chicks for a goat, so I got one goat, and I got two sheep that I traded a couple steaks for. That's how diverse I am. I got a horse too, so I've got a bunch of little bitty. I got a bunch of little bitty stuff that takes a lot of time. But like with the pigs, broilers, cattle, at the time we were spring and fall calving, we were backgrounding, finishing. We got death by diversity. There's just no question about it. And I sold basically fall herd's gone. I just spring calve cows, have a meat business, herd of cattle. And then I've been trading Corrientes. There's no denying that I like to buy and sell. So I guess that air quotes me as a trader, whatever. But I like putting together Corrientes and kind of getting them ready to go on for somebody else to hopefully have success with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that death by diversification, you just got too many irons in the fire and not enough time, so you had to scale back on those other.
Yeah, you get so much thing going. You got 6 pigs, 200 layers, 150 broilers, spring calving, fall calving cows, stocker cattle, meat business cattle. And what ends up happening, or it did for us, and I still had an off-farm job. I was still working 35 plus hours a week for another guy, running his 2,500 acres and his 400 cows. And then also trying to deliver meat to St. Louis. And you can't get anything done. You just do chores constantly and you work all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And you start looking at it and each thing might make you $1,000 or $2,000, right? You might net $2,000 on some pasture hogs. But what would you have been able to do if you could have taken there's other things that could have been done and you could have made more, whatever. I mean, if you're going to net $2,000 on a set of hogs, but you're running 24 hours a day and really don't factor your labor into your pasture pork,
I totally get that. My wife keeps me in track. Otherwise, I'd have a little bit of everything, and I already have a little bit of everything. So I don't need anything else, but I could easily add stuff, which I don't need to. I totally get that. And I think it's important to take that step back and realize, hey, this is adding to the bottom line, but it's not adding enough to make up for the increase in labor and another chore I'm doing and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. The opportunity potential, like what could we have been doing? Or could we have maybe made $3,000 if we would have been able to get a new piece of grass fenced or whatever, if we had water at this point, but you weren't able to get it done.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Now, one thing you mentioned there was about selling meat to St. Louis area. So let's talk about your direct to consumer. When did you, and on the first episode, we really didn't talk about that. When did you all start selling direct to consumer?
Yeah, so it's just me now on the farm. It's just me. Let's see. 2019, we got into some farmers markets. COVID shut that all down. And right when COVID was, when we had the mandated lockdown, that's when we started delivering meat to St. Louis. And from there, we basically delivered, from the lockdowns till now, shutdowns, whatever you want to call it. I've delivered meat to St. Louis almost every week since then.
Oh, yes. Do you have a route you go? Do you have... How does it work for you delivering it to them?
Okay, so it started out as text messages, and I would just text message on pictures of my, handwritten inventory. And then we went to barn to door. From barn to door, we left that, and now we're at Shopify. I have a lady, her name's Jordan. She works with me. She's the main person behind all of the social media posts. I do the stories, but she does a lot of the posts, emails. If you email us, she's responding.
Oh, yes.
And you go online, order cuts, bulk, whatever, and it's all home delivery. So the routes each week vary.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned there you went from barn to door to Shopify. Why did you make that transition, and how has it worked for you?
Well, the barn to door wants me back, so they've been setting up meetings. I left because the number of clicks it takes to get a sale.
Oh, yeah.
Customers flat out, if they got to click 2 more times, it's frankly just a pain in their ass. It doesn't seem like it, but if you've got those extra clicks, people get fed up with it. There's a whole there's other reasons. Shopify's one of the biggest, if not the biggest e-commerce businesses, right? They've got an app. It's super easy to manage. Inventory, all my orders are on an app. I can click through. I can get it all laid out. Inventory management's all right there. It's super, super easy compared to what it was back then. And honestly, that was a few years ago when we left. And honestly, it doesn't sound like much has changed.
Oh, yeah. I see it, but I haven't used it. I'm not at that point. So it's interesting to have that take on it. I have used Shopify a little bit and Etsy about some other stuff, but that's interesting. Now, switching gears just a little bit, August, you started, or you were inspired. I'm sure you were inspired because I made podcasting look just so glamorous, but you started a podcast.
Yeah, I did. I love listening to podcasts. The idea behind it was long form conversations. I would just talk to people I wanted to talk to. I still have a giant list of people I want to talk to, right? But I would talk to people that with no notes, right? It was just all off the cuff conversations. I would hear about somebody doing something this way. So then I would just call them with maybe a general topic in mind. And then we would go from there. And wherever the conversation went, it went. And I really enjoyed it. I'm in my podcast studio here, right? I've got the whole deal is we can do 4 people, me and 3 other guys, 3 other gals, whatever. We can do a 4-way conversation, but it took an entire day. By the time people came down, we toured around, established a relationship, how, I would pay attention to how people talked and stuff. We'd go to lunch and then we would record. And then by the time you edit something that's a couple hours long, that's where, I really enjoyed it. I recorded a few episodes right at the end and, one was in person with Eric Fuchs of Understanding Ag, and one was from a guy in Texas about vents. And I recorded those pretty much not the same day, but like within a couple days. And those were my 3rd and 4th episode that had gotten just wiped out. Like I couldn't even access them, the chip, whatever, malfunction.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, and it was like that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, It was like, man, Eric took the time. We sat down, talked, really good conversation. And I had the number 1 and number 2 people that the first and second time it happened. One was Jason Meadows and one was my vet that I used. Both super busy guys. Basically, the same thing happened. It was like, man, these people are taking their time to come, and then their stuff gets erased. I'll just feel terrible about it. I better just quit and figure out the issue so it doesn't happen again. And I just, life's happened, and just haven't gotten back to it. But I did thoroughly enjoy the conversation. And I was tickled that you asked me to come back on.
You mentioned something there, just the opportunity to talk to everyone through this podcast has just been amazing. So I fully agree with you. The opportunity to talk to people, and like you coming back on here, finding out what's happening since and what I can take away from it for my own operation, I think is wonderful. And I think in your format's a little bit different than my format. And I think there's room for all of us, because some people's going to listen to me and say, I'm not listening to him anymore. And I don't blame them. But there are a few people that will listen multiple times to me. So you get that personality of the host, the format of it. There's room for us all here. And I was excited for your podcast, Grazed in America. And hopefully the future comes and you can get some time to get back on that. But I do understand technology issues are a killer.
Yeah.
And the time.
And I've thoroughly enjoyed yours. One of my favorite episodes is with Jennifer and Luis Hernandez. And, down there. Man, I met them at a Joel Salatin event a couple years ago, and then we stay in contact, and they're awesome people. So fun to talk to Luis.
They are, and they're always doing something. I have not made it down there or made it to the farmer's market where they're selling, and I keep planning not to. But they are always busy doing stuff, and there's so much they're doing that I look and think, oh, that's something I could try.
Yeah.
Speaking to the problems, I just recorded an episode other day that it didn't keep any of it. Actually, we're going to record an in-person episode pretty soon, but they're doing some similar stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing, you started that Grazing in America podcast, but you also started a Facebook group, Grazed in America.
Yeah, so
I've got goal with the Facebook group.
So I've got, I have Grazed in America on Facebook, Grazed in America on Instagram. Those are more for the podcast. And then I have Grazed in America Livestock. And basically it was just a spot where people could come and not for sale their animals, but rehoming, their animals, and just one-stop shop for these people with meat businesses looking for, I guess my goal is to get this regenerative farm movement, help nurture it to continue it to grow, to be a part of the growth of it, because I truly 110% believe in it. I believe about nutrient density, quality of the meat, family farm life, that work-life balance, the whole thing about it. 110% believe it. Live it every day. Food's medicine, that whole deal. And so just want to be a part of helping that grow and share information and provide an area for people that share that same vision, same mission, where they can go and find this stock. And so that's the idea behind it, as just, we need something for our meat business. Let's go put it here. And it's organically grown to 1,700 members so far, I believe.
Oh, yeah, very good.
Yeah, just a spot you can put your sheep or your lambs, or you said you're rehoming some cows. Your cows are looking for new pasture. You can put them on there. Anymore, I used to take the time, people would put for sale, and I would take the time and message, this is not a for sale. It would just change for sale to rehome or looking for, etc. Now I don't really have the time to do that. And just because then some people will like, lets me do it here. And then, so then you get like in this back and forth with somebody on the rules. And I'm like, it's just for Facebook. Don't ruin it for the rest of us. So now I have to scan every post now. And now I delete the ones that say for sale. I don't even take time to message back because it's just, if you don't know the rules of Facebook by now, I don't.
Right. And you get into, they want to debate it with you and you're like, it's not a debate. I don't have a choice in this. I want the group to continue. We can't do it. Yeah. And that admin side of that, it's like the podcast, the admin side of the Facebook group takes up a little bit more time than you ever anticipated when you start it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I'm approving people to join because there's so many of those groups that have those spam accounts that post just bad stuff. So one thing I do is I go through and approve people now because I want to make sure we're keeping it relatable, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And one thing I found with Facebook, the Facebook groups are my favorite part of Facebook now. That's why I get on there, is the groups that I'm part of to find out information. When we first started, it was about family, and then everyone and their dog wanted to be your friend. And then it just got lost in there. And really my family, the people, I guess my extended family, I see some updates from them that I may not hear otherwise. But really, the Facebook groups are why I'm still on Facebook.
Yep, 100%. I think last time I looked, I was like on 110 groups. All I see is groups stuff, just the sheer amount of information or certain things. People looking for meat or restaurants or whatever. You see so many things. People wanting for dogs. I don't know how many Border Collie pages I'm on or how many St. Louis looking for groups I'm a part of. Just, it's a giant tool. I mean, like people say you're always on your phone, right? I get that all the time. But it's not like I'm looking at other people. I'm just constantly scrolling through 100+ groups with some of those groups get 20, 30 posts a day on commenting and shit and just hoping one hits. Just any little bit of downtime. Yeah. Plus it might be a sort of an addiction.
Yeah, I think there's a certain amount valid to that because I catch myself scrolling when I should be doing something else, or I just pick it up and I'm scrolling. I'm like, why am I doing that? I don't need to do that.
Yeah, like in the middle of a field.
We won't go on that addiction very much further. Yeah, I've done that. Yeah. That's the reason I try and keep it in my pocket and the earbud in so I'm listening to something, or if I'm choosing not to listen, but try and keep the phone out of my hand during those times.
Yep. I get no notifications from any social media. So the only thing, if you need me, text or call. That's the only way if you need an immediate something. I don't respond to Instagram messages because I will respond to them, but it's when I see them because I've opened my phone.
Yeah. Which makes sense because you've got to stop all this incoming noise because there's just so much incoming noise. Yeah. August, really enjoyed catching up with you. Like we said at the beginning, 3.5 years since you were on the podcast. So finding out what you've done since then and where you're going. One thing you did, you scaled back on everything. And before we move to the famous 4 questions, you had mentioned you would be open to adding another species in. But if I understood you, that's really kind of, you hire someone, if they have an interest in something, you may be willing to add that species back. Or is there anything you want to add back for sure?
Yeah, so we scaled back on all the other enterprises to basically 0 right now, but then scaled up on cows and our meat business side. Yeah, currently, I would say we're I don't want to put a number with how many acres is fenced, but currently we are fencing to bring in.
Oh, yeah.
And with cattle prices as high as they are, if you sell your cows, there's a tax kind of deferral that the gain on the livestock that can be deferred for X amount of years to buy back in. We're looking at different options there, but yeah, for the right person, the right fit for somebody to bring in sheep, or not bring in, we go out and buy them, but definitely we have the room to add something. Sheep or goats, preferably, but yeah, comes with a house and everything for the right person.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah. Get the word out. Maybe you can find that person that'll.
Hopefully a listener, right?
For you.
Like learning about grazing, they're on the right path.
Exactly. Yeah. August, it is time for our famous 4 questions. And we're going to ask them again, even though you answered them on episode 15. One difference now in the questions, they are sponsored by Ken Cove Farm Fence. Ken Cove Farm Fence is a proud supporter of the Grazing Grass podcast and grazers everywhere. At Ken Cove Farm Fence, they believe there's true value within the community of grazers and land stewards. The results that follow proper management and monitoring can change the very world around us. That's why Ken Cove is dedicated to providing an ever-expanding line of grazing products to make your chores easier and your land more abundant. Whether you're growing your own food on the homestead or grazing on thousands of acres, Ken Cove has everything you need to do it well. From reels to tumble wheels, polytwine to electric nets, water valves to water troughs, you'll find what you're looking for at Ken Cove. They carry brands like Speedrite, O'Brien's, Kiwi Tech, Strainrite, Job, and more. Ken Cove is proud to be part of your regenerative journey. Call them today or visit kencove.com, and be sure to follow them on social media and subscribe to the Ken Cove YouTube channel at Ken Cove Farm Fence for helpful how-to videos and new product releases. They are the same questions we ask of all of our guests, so let's get to them.
And I did not re-listen to it, so I don't remember what I answered. So we'll see what happens.
I did listen, so I'm curious to see what all you say, and I have part of those answers in my mind, so we'll see what you go with.
Okay.
First question, what is your favorite grazing grass-related book or resource?
Man, it's a good one. I've been doing a lot of audio books and podcasts still. Grazing Grass Podcast, Working Cows, Herd Quitter. And I'm still pretty much involved with understanding ag and going to those schools and free events and stuff that they host. Off the top of my head, I'm in the process of listening to Will Harris's book, which is very good.
Oh, yeah.
Read by him. So.
Oh, even better. I have it on my shelf, but I haven't read it yet. Maybe I should get the audio version and listen to him.
Read by him. It's a pretty good listen. A bold return to giving a damn. Right?
Yeah, and I'm always a fan when the author reads a book. I feel like it just adds so much to it. Excellent resources there. Just tell you what you answered before. You had talked about Greg Judy's books, and you had talked about YouTube and Gabe Brown and Greg Judy and Alan Williams and listening to them.
Okay, yeah, so it's changed. I spend very little time on YouTube.
I find, this is a tangent, I may cut it out. I find it's very interesting the process or learning cycle a person goes through on gathering information, gaining information, and the different stages in it. With YouTube freely available, everybody just goes to that, and you can get so much information there. But at a certain point, you want a little bit deeper level or a higher level of knowledge, whichever way you want to go. So then you're gravitating to some audiobooks or books or some courses or conferences, stuff to go to like that. I think that process is really interesting, and I've seen it in my own life on different things I learned. Back before YouTube, I'd be all about a certain set of magazines. I'd read them every month, but then I hit a certain point in my knowledge, my focus changed. So I think that's always really interesting.
Yeah, I noticed that with myself as well. I, like you said, started with YouTube. Then I got really into podcasts, listening to all of them. Now I more pick and choose episodes I want to listen to on the podcast side of things. Focus a lot on audiobooks and been doing a lot more of the business books, but still really big and focused on going to schools. I budget closer now to $3,000 to $5,000 a year just for continuing education and getting out there and networking and things like that. And then when I did the podcast, that was learned so much from the people.
Oh, yeah. Opportunity to talk to people in the trenches and find out what's going on and the experts. It's a wonderful resource as a host of a podcast to be able to talk to these people.
Yeah. Talk to people way smarter than me.
Yeah, that's what I try and do. Talk to people smarter than me. I find the bar is set pretty low with me, but it's working out. Our second question, what is your favorite tool for the farm?
I'm still pretty partial to my four-wheeler. I would say that's probably what I answered. I don't know if that is, but my four-wheeler, dogs, and polywire and stuff, polywire and step-ins.
That's basically the answer you gave before. Started with your four-wheeler, includes your tools on your four-wheeler and your dog. So pretty close there. For question 3, what would you tell someone just getting started?
That's a good question. I would learn, find a mentor, and start slow. I would keep a very open mind about what's possible and not get caught in the stigma of owning any certain type of cow. If you want, we'll use cows for example, because that's what I love. But look more for undervalued and how to add value versus going with any specific breed or stuff like that. Kind of more the buy the undervalued cow at the time. There's Wally Olson, Doug Ferguson, Understanding Ag started to put some of these marketing schools out, and focus on that and match the livestock with your environment.
Yeah, I think all that's great advice. And Wally and Doug's school are both schools I'd like to attend. The matching your livestock to the environment, that is huge, I think. And when I think about that, the people that come to mind are the people that are like, I've got 5 acres, I've got 10 acres, I want to buy a few cows. Mm-hmm. Maybe in that situation, we should be looking at small ruminants or some other species.
Yeah. Or it's, I've just bought this farm and I've been watching these videos and we're going to buy super expensive papered South Pole cattle. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. There's probably better buys currently and breeding up. Or maybe it is buy the better. If you're in that period of your life and maybe more retired age and stuff, have the income or the disposable income or whatever to purchase South Poles or papered Angus, whatever, do so. There's
so many variables in there.
Yeah, so many. Learn.
Yeah. And August, lastly, where can others find out more about you?
I'm on social media, Horstmann Cattle Co., Grazed in America, and then August Horstmann, that's Horstmann. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. My website's www.horstmann.cattleco.com, and phone number 314-322-1076. That is the best way if you want to get a hold of me. Call or text. If you don't get me, my phone rings constantly. So just feel free to shoot me a text if you don't get me, and we can talk. So love helping people, love sharing my thoughts on I've seen. I mean, what I've seen and learned. Every place is different, but my experiences, like I said, really passionate about the regenerative farm movement, nutrient density, and yeah.
August, we appreciate you coming on and sharing an update with us today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's been fun. It's been fun kind of getting back into the podcast again. It's been a while since I've done one or been on one, and it's been enjoyable. Maybe I need to get mine fired back up sooner than I thought.
Oh, I think you do, but I fully get about irons in the fire and the amount of time it takes. It's not you record and you publish it all in just a moment.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit.
Too many irons.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I really hope you enjoyed today's conversation. I know I did. Thank you for listening. And if you found something useful, please share it. Share it on your social media. Tell your friends. Get the word out about the podcast. Helps us grow. If you happen to be a grass farmer and you'd like to share about your journey, go to grazinggrass.com and click on Be Our Guest. Fill out the form and I'll be in touch. We appreciate your support by sharing our episodes and telling your friends about it. You can also support our show by buying our merch. We get a little bit back from that. Another way to support the show is by becoming a Grazing Grass Insider. Grazing Grass Insiders enjoy bonus content, monthly Zooms, and discounts. You can visit the website, grazinggrass.com, click on support, and they'll have the links there. Also, if you haven't left us a review, please do. It really helps us as people are searching for podcasts. And I was just checking them, and we do not have very many reviews for 2024. So if you haven't left us a review, please do. And until next time, keep on grazing grass.